thank you very much. I quite understand. I have to brush out a little bit still my Greek, but more or less I got it. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity to the Association of the European Energy Retailers to bring no into the table a little bit the debate and also to show our perspective, no, as we're that last mile to the end customer, and therefore we're always trying to bring not to European debates, well, the different view of the consumer, no, what is the consumer feeling about this, and how he can be part of it, no. So I'll share some slides with you, and let me see. So you're actually now seeing them, probably. Well, as we said, no, I'm just going to give a perspective of what we're going to speak a lot, no, probably throughout this uh, next hour, no, of this consumer. And we saw this in the previous slideshow, that prosumer figure, no, where we want to arrive with consumers, where we kind of get, no, from consumer to prosumer, right? What's going to happen? So all this new landscape is turning this. First, some points about what is the European Energy Retailers Association. So it's an association of hundreds of different retailers throughout different countries in Europe. Of course, no, we have ESPEN with us, so the Greek association is part of it, but also Italian companies, French companies, Spanish companies, Swedish companies, and German companies are within the association. And as I was saying, no, we're always trying to promote competition, advise consumers, provide risk mitigation services. That is one of the things that is more now on the table, and we're seeing now that this lever it's something very important for consumers, and also well provide all these new products, not all this new landscape, how we enable all these consumers to access the market. So let's answer this main question. What is a prosumer? No? And it's something that is going to be very foster for the next months at least, because we have these price peaks are demonstrating that well, having your own production or being independent or managing your energy in a better way would have been a good value now. So what is a prosumer? No, so typically we sometimes understand a prosumer we see before a picture, no, where a prosumer is just okay, somebody in his house, he's just having his coffee, relaxed, and just put some solar panels, and then suddenly he's a prosumer. No, he's a prosumer because he just put some solar panels. So well, we think that it's more than that. No, being a prosumer implies a lot of things. Of course, self-production could be an initial start, but it's not. Actually, we could have prosumers without solar panels in the facility, and it's only just one step because there's a lot of things to do. No, after you are just self-producing your energy, because there are demand response, and we'll speak also about it for sure. So the consumer could adapt their consumption to better hours or try to put the dishwasher in a cheaper. And if you're an industry, do your heating processes in a cheaper hour. No, now that we have index contracts and this type of things, they're going to have a storage within these prosumers. We saw, no, we were speaking about energy communities, no, in the speech before. There will be electric vehicle that gives a lot of possibilities of, especially of trying to flatten the profile of the demand. No, that it's something quite important, because if we are able to charge cars during the night where we have less peaks, then we can align a little bit. Then the flexibility issue, we were also listening, that's going to be very important for local problems and congestions, and being consumers being flexible, and then also balancing services. Now, I think this is like the end of the road for consumers to become prosumers, that is start acting within the balancing services, because now traditionally we have systems where every time we need 10 more gigawatts, 10 more megawatts in the system, what we do is turn on more power, no more generation. We turn on generation. Typically, this comes from fossil fuel generation. But if we're able to put together the consumer to be an active player there, maybe it's much better for the system just reducing demand instead of just increasing generation. No, and that's something that we have to work a lot when we are listening a lot about that demand response, but demand aggregators. So this balancing service is very important. No, a retailer with 100,000 houses is able to manage 100,000 dishwashers, no, for example, and that is the same capacity of management than one combined cycle of 100 megawatts. So it's important that we start working on this perspective, and we're able to build the system in a more efficient way, because we've always built the system about hey, put generation, put networks. If the demand grows, more generation, more networks, and more cost, more generation, more network, and in that cycle, no? And now we can start with all the tools we're going to have with digitalization. We'll speak about this later. We can start having the consumer being part of the system and deciding if he wants to really modulate. Now, it's something that only big industries are doing, but then it's something that we should do in the future. So this prosumer, no, this consumer, no, prosumer for us, no, it's not just a product producer and consumer. It's a professional consumer. No? It's somebody that it's active, has an active role. So it's not just sitting down with his coffee. It's a guy that it's somebody that's active, that it knows his consumption, is aware of it. No, and that's for a domestic consumer. And probably that will evolve to be a more, in any ways, it's going to be some way reactive consumer and proactive in some way. But then we're going to have some consumers that are big consumers. No, and that's a different play because for sure in the future as we evolve, well, with big consumption comes big responsibility. No. So that means that probably a big consumer has to be more implied on balancing services, on flexibilities, on storage, and all this type of things. No, and as well as for final domestic consumers could be something more well aspirational, or at least that they see it as a pure value. Probably for big industry will end up being at least in some way mandatory to participate or give these balancing services to the system because it's a bigger responsibility, no, for the bigger demands, no, this point. But so this is the what we see, no, that prosumers are professional consumers. But to enable this, there's something that it's key for us, and it's a big debate now at the European level and how we're going to manage this because there's a lot of asymmetry between, and this is the main endeavor of this transition on how this consumer can participate because there's big asymmetry between what a consumer gives to the system in the sense of data and what does he receive from the system. No, and this asymmetry is something we have to solve in the future if we really want to empower consumers to be able and prepared to do all those services we will see, no, throughout a professional consumer, no. And if we want to get some detail of it, you can see, no, I mean, a typical consumer throughout Europe, little by little, each time more, we're having smart meters in different countries. There's countries with more than 95% of smart meters. So a consumer is given real-time capabilities. It's going to give hourly load curve, even instantly hourly curve, even remote management. So he's given all that. This hourly profile is able to get into the system operator, and then we do have big load curve databases with real profile informations and complex operational management of all the networks. This comes to all those market settlement. No, so we do have a lot of complex Euphemia, no, that algorithm that is managing the pool prices. This info finally gets to generators and retailers, and for the consumer, basically he receives one monthly invoice with one value per one price, and sometimes in some countries not even is the meter is used with the actual curve, or not even a value. It's only read once every 2 or 3 months. No, so there's a lot of asymmetry, no, between what a consumer gives to the system to be able to manage, and as smart meters are deploying little by little, then each time the consumer is putting more on the table and receiving less from the system because it doesn't have access. No, and that's where we see that as this last mile to consumers, it's very important that consumers start having the info, and probably it's not being directly the info to them, but maybe it's their retailer who needs to have access to the info and help them to work out. The same way as when you have a legal problem, you look for a lawyer, or you have an energy problem, then you can look for your energy expert somehow. And it's but it's important to empower, no? And this is more or less my final remarks, no? That at the end, consumer empowerment is key, no? For full decarbonization of the system and to balance. No, we were hearing it before. It's to balance renewable generation with demand. It's going to be a matter of managing that energy, and it's not only going to be the generation side moving things. We need the demand to participate. Probably from a bigger and industrial perspective, that would be something more mandatory. But from a domestic customer, they need to see value there, and they need to see that they are saving money with it, and they need to see that if they charge their electric vehicle in cheaper hours, they can save 100 euros a year. No, and this type of thing. So that's very important. That empowerment is only possible through this data-driven engagement. So consumers have the info and can take a decision, or can have somebody take decision from them. And this is a point where suppliers have a key role, where they need to have the info and understand how they can manage and optimize the different consumers. And this could be that final mile. It could be supplier, it could be an aggregator, but it needs to be somebody helping out a final consumer to this. And this is going to imply for sure a lot of cooperation between the different market players. So the DSOs, the metering data operators, to all the balancing systems to work out. But it's an effort that is worth it, because if smart meters are not smart if we don't use. So we're developing huge hardware infrastructures throughout Europe, and we're just using them to invoice once a month to the end customer. So it's something that we need to start thinking on, and how we're going to manage all this data that's going to be generated to really be able to get this landscape we were speaking of, and be able to get this landscape and really build business model around them and have the final consumer engage. So thank you.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κύριε Κολίνο. Κρατάω από την παρουσίασή σας αυτό που είπατε, ότι ουσιαστικά αλλάζει ο ρόλος του προμηθευτή στα έξυπνα δίκτυα και γίνεται, ο οποίος πλέον θα γίνει ενεργειακός σύμβουλος.